In 1966, Kenneth Burke, a literary theorist and critic who focused primarily on rhetoric, wrote Language as Symbolic Action, which contains his definition of man. His definition consists of 5 clauses that he believed make up mankind. Man is the symbol-using animal, inventor of negative, separated from his natural condition by instruments of his own making, goaded by a spirit of hierarchy, and rotten with perfection. I chose to focus on the idea that humans are goaded by a spirit of hierarchy, which according to Kenneth Burke could also be described as moved by a sense of order. This clause about humans means that we tend to be drawn to order and status in our society. Why, you may ask? The reason we follow hierarchy is to climb social structures in hopes of bettering ourselves. Humans yearn to be at the top of the top, and to do that we must obey and follow social hierarchy. Although Burke wrote the definition of man in 1966, it is extremely relevant in today's society. Every day I witness examples of how humans are goaded by hierarchy, and after my video you will hopefully have a better understanding as well. First I will focus on humans' desire to follow a sense of order. The sole reason we obey order is because it allows our society to be fair. Without order and rules to follow, our society would be a free-for-all. With everyone doing as they please, there would be no sense of fairness. Those disobeying would have no consequences, giving people no incentives to obey. Instead, we live life in order, and when one disobeys an existing order, the action is followed by a sense of guilt. The guilt can be too much for a person, so he or she resorts to victimage, which means to blame someone else for his wrongdoings. Finally, the person comes to terms with his or her own guilt and confesses. The process that I just described is originated by Kenneth Burke and is referred to as the victimage ritual. It helps to understand the idea that humans by nature want to blame others when we find shortcomings in ourselves and in our own actions. We push the focus to others because our society is set up that other people are separate from us. This leads me to my second focus of hierarchy, status. Hierarchy allows us to make categories of humans based on certain characteristics. That is the basis of what status is, putting people in ranks and therefore separating them. Status could be defined by how much money one makes. The more money, the higher the income class. People could be separated by education. The more educated one is, the higher status they have. Maybe it's by popularity. The more people one knows, the better him or her status is. It doesn't matter which way you define status though. The sole purpose is to differentiate people. And humans are constantly doing this. We tend to think highly of people with greater status and also want to gain more status for ourselves. It may help to understand the topic of being goaded by a spirit of hierarchy by focusing on examples particularly at Penn State or in areas that are familiar to everyone. An everyday example of how we are goaded by a spirit of hierarchy is by being drawn to order is in college. Students who have more credits are able to pick their classes sooner than students who don't. This example illustrates both the ideas of being drawn to order and as well as status. There needs to be some structure to how classes are picked by students, and this system creates fairness, so that is why it's in place. It is also an example of status because students with more credits have a better status. They get perks, and other students are trying to gain more credits. Another example of how hierarchy is in place and relates to order is in the classroom. It doesn't need to be said, but there is a certain order that goes on. When one walks in, they're usually respectful, and during lecture, students are quiet and paying attention. As you can see in this classroom, everyone is listening to the teacher. There are usually signs outside of the classroom by the doors that read "no food or drink." These signs are also an example of a higher up order that people obey. A final example of hierarchy in terms of order is in stores. When purchasing something, one waits in line and is checked out by a cashier. There is order to this process, so it is not a free-for-all. An example of how hierarchy, in particular status, plays a role in school is in grade levels. Students are all defined and separated by a certain grade level. The higher grade levels are viewed with more power and seniority, while lower grade levels, especially freshmen, have little power and look to gain it. Another example of hierarchy in schools is with the faculty. Teachers control the students, but they are not at the top of the status of hierarchy. Above them is the department heads, and then the vice president, and at the top is the president of the schools. They hold the greatest status. A final example of hierarchy is at a concert. Celebrities are viewed in our society as having high social status, so they're at the top of the hierarchy. Below them may be people who work for the celebrity, and then people working for the venue. Finally, at the bottom, with the least bit of status, is the people paying to be at the concert. I hope these examples helped understand how prevalent Kenneth Burke's idea of being goaded by a spirit of hierarchy is in today's society. Even if it goes unnoticed, we are constantly being drawn to order and status. Thank you.